Alright guys, welcome to the first in a number of tutorials that we're going to do, introducing you to the basics of website development. I'm not going to focus on the skills, I'm going to focus on how to use the skills properly. So to begin with, we're not going to make anything spectacular, we're just going to work on understanding the basics. For every website you make, I want you to create a directory for each of the upcoming tutorials. The first one in a folder called tutorials is going to be called tutorial number 1. Pretty self-explanatory. Now for every website, the key is organisation, so you must ensure that all your directories are named appropriately and easy to access. So within tutorial 1, even though we're not going to use any, to get you into the good habit, we are going to create a new folder. This folder is going to be called images, and alongside that folder we're going to create another new one, and that's going to be called CSS. Okay, we're not going to use those folders for this tutorial, but they need to be there to get you guys into the habit of putting them there. In this tutorial we're going to use a piece of software called Adobe Brackets, and that piece of software is open source and can be downloaded at the web address below. Adobe Brackets is really useful because it has syntax highlighting, so it can help us should we make any mistakes. What I'd like you to do is open up Brackets and open up your web browser of choice. I recommend Google Chrome. What we're going to do is we're going to start to write some very simple HTML so you can understand how to mark up a document correctly. So in Brackets, go to File, Open Folder, choose your tutorial 1 folder you've just created and press Open. And what that will do is it will put all the files for tutorial 1 on the left hand side where they're easy for us to access. I now want you to press File and New, and we have now created a new file. The nice things about Brackets are that it will show us the files we're currently working on alongside the directories that they might be in. So as you might be aware, HTML is used to mark up a website, but you may not be aware of the meaning and the requirements of all the different elements that you can have on a web page. We are going to focus on a few today. The first one being a paragraph, second one being headings, and the third one being all the sorts of types of lists that you can have. When we first start a website, we have to put in the things that all web pages must have. So we start with a doc type. A doc type is a declaration of the rules that we're going to abide by when creating this web page. Now I've used doc type HTML, and this is the document type for HTML5. The reason I've used that is it's backwards compatible with all the previous versions of HTML. It's very unlikely that you will ever need to use a previous version of a doc type, so for now focus on this HTML. The next thing we put in is a declaration of the start of our HTML page, or our HTML code. In brackets, if we create HTML, or create a tag should I say, and press enter, it usually puts the pair. Inside HTML we have an element called the head. Now before I do that, I am actually going to save this document, and I'm going to call this index.html, and I'm going to save it in the root of our tutorial 1 folder. Notice now Brackets knows it's an HTML file, therefore all my tags have gone blue. What I was going to say previously was, notice how when we add in a tag, it adds the closing tag as well. You will notice that I've written tags in pairs. Most HTML elements have a pair of tags. One to begin the content that that tag will have, or that element will have, and one to close it. The head contains all the information about a website. So it might contain a title, and the title is the thing that you see up here in the top of the tab or in your search results. And this title will be Tutorial 1. And it will also have, or should have, some meta information. And meta information again means information about the web page, and we are going to add in a description. So meta name description, and the content of the description is going to be, this is tutorial number 1. Now many users will never see that, but it's important for our search engine friendliness and any accessibility that we might need. Going on from the head, we have the body of a web page. And the body of the web page is everything that we see in the browser's viewport here. Okay, so anything that the user will see. I'm going to put in a heading. As you can see, headings have a number at the end of, after the H for heading. That number indicates the order of importance. So H1 is the most important, H2 second most, H3 and so on. Any H2s following an H1 are belonging to it. Any H3s belonging to an H2 belong to that, and so on. Much like a Word document or anything like that that has different headings and subheadings. So my H1 is going to say this is a first level heading. And then underneath I'm going to put H2, so you can see that this is a second level heading. The nice thing about Adobe Brackets is once we've saved, we can click the little preview lightning bolt and it will actually load up in our browser a live version of what our website currently looks like. So while I know it doesn't look like much at the moment, we can see the impact that we are having. I'm now going to add in a paragraph, but I don't know what I want to write, so I'm going to grab some placeholder text from a place called Lorem Ipsum. And what this will do is it will generate a number of paragraphs for us that we can just copy and paste until we have the actual writing that we want. So if I grab these 2 paragraphs, drop them in, and make sure that I do separate them into the paragraphs. So as we can see, the paragraph starts there, it ends there, and it has the text in the middle. If we go back to our tutorial tab, you can see that Brackets has put a blue box around it, so we can see that this paragraph starts there, ends there. Okay. What's important to understand is, while Google Chrome has put H2 smaller than the H1, the appearance actually has nothing to do with the elements that we've used. Google Chrome has added its own style because it understands what the headings are and what priority they should be in and what the paragraph should behave like. We will overwrite this with CSS, so it's massively important when creating websites. You do not worry about what they look like when marking up a web page. You worry about the meaning of these tags. What is the most important element? What's the second most important? What paragraph belongs to what heading, etc., etc. As well as a variety of different paragraphs and headings, another often used element on a web page are lists. So we are going to put a second level heading because it belongs to the first level, and I'm going to call it types of lists. And then we're going to create the types of lists. Now, just as an example, I'm going to use a third level heading and introduce you to the first type of list, which is an unordered list. Okay. An unordered list is to be used when you want to list a series of repeated items, could be text, could be images or anything like that, that have no order of priority. So a shopping list, an image gallery, something like that. And we mark it up using the UL tag to declare the start and the end of our list. And then within that, we have the LI tag, which stands for a list item. Okay, so a UL can contain many list items. So let's do my shopping list. So milk, bread, cheese, and water. Okay, that is an unordered list. As we can see in the browser, it's put a standard bullet point because there is no order in which that has priority. So it doesn't matter whether we get milk before bread or cheese before milk or whatever. Okay. Our second type of list, and we'll put another heading in because this H3 will belong to this H2, which will be called an ordered list. And it's marked up in exactly the same way, except for this time it's an OL instead of a UL. We'll put our list item, and in this time we'll use a league table. So we'll put Man United at the top, where I'd like them to finish this year, closely followed by Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool. As you can see, if we look back to the browser, they've put a number next to each list item depending on the order that they're in. And this is useful for things like a set of instructions, such as a recipe, or a league table, such as this. Okay, it's where the first one either comes before or is more important than the one below. Our final type of list, which is not used that commonly and actually underused in places where it should be, is called a definition list. And a definition list is slightly different to an unordered list and an ordered list in that it has different tags. So we can use the DL to declare the start and end of our list, but each list item has a DT, which I always say definition term, and a DD, which I always stand for definition description. And that term is a term that is going to be described by a definition. So very much like a dictionary or an encyclopedia entry. So if we put in aardvark and we find a definition for it somewhere, Wikipedia will do. We can see if we go back to the tutorial that we have our term to be defined, which is aardvark, and we now have a definition. And there are loads of benefits to this, such as Google search results will show it as a definition style on your results, and also it's marked up so it's very accessible so people understand and devices understand that this is a term and this is the definition of that term. The way HTML works is that it will recognise that any DD following a DT, so we could have more than one, is the definition of that term. So it looks for the first DT above it, and that is the term it's defining. So if we do another one, and search for zebra, we can take that one and we can pop it in there. If we go back to our tutorial, we can see now that we have a definition for zebra. What we can do is to give it a bit more of formatting. There is no harm in putting a paragraph inside a definition, for example. And what that will allow us to do is format this in the same way that our paragraphs are formatted. Again, we could put a paragraph in there, get rid of the extra P that brackets has put in. And we can see under here now it's formatted with the spacing above, much like the paragraphs above. So that's it for the basics, looking at how we can work with HTML to mark up a document very simply, and looking at the important uses of headings, paragraphs and lists. In the next one we're going to look at adding in images and links and adding more meaning to a document.